So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to my presentation. Just a short show of hands. How many here are today arrived by car here? How many of you are rest assured that there's no vulnerability in their car? Okay. So, today's presentation I'm giving is about current state in car security or vehicular security. What was omissioned in the introduction, during the day I work at Bosch Engineering. Someone might know Bosch as a company which is small to medium sized in the automobile industry. At night, I am a member of C3 Vienna. I lecture at the Technical University of Vienna. And I'm a court-certified expert witness. So in case members of the law enforcement apparatus struggle with IT problems in specific cases, I'm able to help them. And I'm also a co-founder of the Foundation for Applied Privacy. We've been officially founded like a few months ago. And as you can see, we have a logo and we have stickers, so we're pretty serious. Chat me up on that topic after the talk, because this is kind of a side project of mine and ours, and we do interesting stuff. I'm also going to let some stickers fly around at the tables outside, so if you're into stickers, go get some. So, small disclaimer in the beginning, opinions are my own. This is me, not Bosch, so I haven't been going through the official approval process to have this presentation being part of the official Bosch marketing. Screenshots are from YouTube, of course, they are not mine. And I really like memes, so you will see one or the other memes to spice up the presentation. However, all the stuff I'm telling you tonight has been published, academically published at the ACM-CSCS conference in August or September. So you can just Google the name of the paper, get it, and you have a systematic analysis on how current cars implement security features that are well understood in the IT domain, but are kind of new for the automotive sector. So have a look at the paper, it's interesting. The figures are not as funny as the memes, but it goes for an interesting read, I hope. So everybody here should be aware of the problem we're dealing with. Cars have become rolling computers, so nowadays car companies pack GPUs and high power processors into their cars, mostly for features that are upcoming, like automated driving or other features they are currently envisioning. What they also do is they equip those cars with wireless interfaces. So you have Bluetooth, you have Wi-Fi, you have 2 to 5 SIM cards, depending on which car you drive. And with the LTE interfaces, you also have internet connectivity, which can be handy. So my car that took us here tonight is not as modern as the ones that are sold today. So my navigation system recently showed me an error that the map material that I'm driving with is 99 months old. This error becomes obsolete if there's internet connectivity. So I never ever have to go to a dealer to update my map material, but instead it's downloaded transparently in the background. And of course, software updates. So why do car manufacturers put all these things into cars? To have the capability to do software updates. What's could be a problem is that all those things work together, even if you're driving on the highway with high speed. Of course, software updates, you will hardly find any car vendor that tries to do a core component software update while driving on the highway. But still, these things work together, and they are intended to have wireless software updates as a feature. Another part of the problem, not just for cars, I've been presenting 2 years ago here on Internet of Things forensics, and that was the time when the Mirai botnet hit. So connecting all the things is part of the current trend. You can get a Wi-Fi enabled house appliance of any kind. I'm pretty sure you can find it online and get one. And the real problem is putting those things into a car, having it not thoroughly tested, or not envisioning the attacker, how they could get their way into the car. So one of the reasons why people are more and more talking about hacking a car has been the publicity stunt, so to say, by Charlie Miller and Chris Walasek. Back in 2010, they started their research on car networks, and they connected within the car network their notebook, and then they were able to send and receive messages and spoof messages and so forth. But what really brought the kicker was in 2015 when they found an open, remotely available open port in some of the connectivity unit and were able to connect to cars while they're driving, while they're thousands of miles away, which is not a good thing. You can, the slides will be online, so you can just click on the image and you see the video. It's actually pretty hilarious because the reporter is sent into the car to drive around on the highway and doesn't know what's going to happen to him, and they start to turn on the AC, do the radio, and all those things. So this was 2015. In a consequence, this is not so nice, Chrysler had to recall 1.5 million cars and had to bring them into the workshop to apply the software updates because back then there was no capability to do software updates. What's also interesting from this hack, Chrysler managed to, the previous generation, which was also vulnerable, they somehow managed to remotely patch it. So someone might say that they hacked their own system to patch and apply a software update, but these are just rumors. I couldn't find any verification of that online. And this is kind of the roadmap of how attackers tried to publish their findings both academically and at conferences. I already stated Miller and Walasek, they started in 2010. Then there was, for example, in 2011, actually I've been there at the conference, and what they did was they modified an MP3 to include an exploit for the radio. So it was a radio in the car, was able to play MP3s. They inserted the CD and the modified MP3, exploited a buffer overflow, and they got access to the radio. And from the radio, they then could step further to attack further units. Yeah, if you just pay close attention in the media. Just this summer, there was University of Leuven who figured out that current Teslas only have a 40-bit keyless Go system, so they could kind of brute force it with cloud connectivity, just a Raspberry Pi, a software-defined radio, and you're good to go. But it doesn't end at the car itself. So this video was published by the police of Solihull, I believe, and it was the first video actually showing a key extension attack. How the attack works is, for convenience, users have the key in their pocket. There's no need to open a lock. They just go to the car, open the door, it opens, it unlocks, and the immobilizer gives the car free. But what many people do is when they enter their home, first thing they do is they drop the key right next to the entrance, meaning that the guy on the left has the receiving side of the key extension thingy that they use. The guy at the front is somewhere at the door and trying to get the signal from the key. And what they do is they just artificially extend the range of the keyless Go system to go through the door and into the room where the key is in. Also, you can see on the video, the guy steps in, starts the car, drives away because the car is started, the immobilizer is mobile, and as long as the car isn't shut down, you can just drive on. There are countermeasures available, of course. You could measure the round trip time between the keyless system and the car and then measure the distance and see, okay, this is probably a key extension and a signal extension attack. But not that many have that yet implemented. So the current attack surface is mostly to get access to those assets, those cars. They are expensive. What you really want to do is take one of those cars, drive away with it, and sell it on eBay or whatever your preferred platform for selling cars is. And thus, the most attacks go against the keys and the keyless systems because they are transmitting wirelessly. And this is really convenient for an attacker to intercept the signal and analyze it to figure out what's the key, how can you relay it, and so forth. Other attacks focus on immobilizers. So just by entering a car, the engine is not automatically able to run. So you have software hurdles that can only be solved with a key to start the car and drive away. And of course, automator fraud, where you can just reduce the total mileage of your car by 100,000, 150,000 kilometers to get more money out of that. It doesn't stop there, actually, because all those cars are now connected with the internet. They have convenience features built in. And this was actually a hack against the car of the guy on the right. This is Scott Helme, with the guy at the bottom being Troy Hunt. And what they found was that he had an app for his car. He could enable the AC or start heating the car. So in the morning, it has snowed, and he entered the car. He didn't want to freeze to death on his short drive to the workplace. And what he found was that the app was using a relatively simple API to send those requests for heating the car, unlocking the car, and so forth over the internet. Problem was, it was inspectable. The only secret needed was the vehicle information number, which is conveniently printed on front of every car nowadays. And then he could unlock the car or start heating it, drain the battery, or also look at the history of where the car has been, how far has the car been driven, what's the power supply like, and so forth. So the current environment of cars assumes that as soon as the car is locked and standing, no one's in there, it's a safe environment. So you cannot do much. You can, of course, take a brick, smash a window, and get into it, but it shouldn't be able that you start the car or drive away with it. But on the other hand, physical access wins. So if you are inside the car, you have the access to all those wires, to all those control units to bypass the checks and actually start the car eventually. So most of the car communication today happens with the CAN bus. It's a relatively robust field bus system with about up to a megabit of bandwidth. And this was designed back at a time when neither security, reliability, or authenticity have been a thing. So everything that's transmitted on the wire is, hey, turn the blinkers on, hey, turn it off again, blink, blink off, blink, and so forth. And it's easily accessible because it's mandated by law that you have this, or in certain parts of the world, that you have this CAN interface, the OBD2 interface, for diagnostic access. So every car which is sold in North America, Europe, I guess, they have this interface where as soon as your car breaks down and one of those gentle people that can fix your car while you're stuck in the ice storm comes, what they do is they plug in their diagnostic device and then see what's going on. This is protected using challenge response, usually proprietary by the vendor who made the car or by the vendor of the different ECUs. So why am I talking about security? This is a very, very active field. So just by having Charlie Miller hack those cars gave a tremendous amount of spur to include security features, which are absolutely normal in our phones or in our computers, to bring them to the car. So the entire industry is shifting. What's also tricky is that it's rather easy to have a new smartphone or to evolve your notebook and sell it with a faster CPU and so forth. But for cars, the development cycles are much longer, so it's much harder to, at a later point in time, introduce security features which haven't been thought of in the beginning. Also, the product lifetime is much longer, because if you own a smartphone, you expect that in 2 to 3 years you're going to buy a new one. But if you buy a super sports car, you want to drive that super sports car the next 30 years, and you really don't want to think about software updates. And it's sunny outside, it's a late fall, beautiful day, and you want to drive your sport car. You do not want to apply software patches beforehand. You want to get in, you want to turn the key, and you want to drive. And this makes it really, really challenging. So some of the features, security features that we have been listed in the paper are in this table. And what we also included is how many car manufacturers, cars sold today, in a rough guess have, or in an educated guess, better to say, have which feature implemented today, and how this is going to change within 5 years. So for example, you have Wi-Fi, you have Bluetooth, and they are usually secured and common in modern cars. Some of them have weaknesses, but most of them get it right. We expect that in 5 years, almost everybody gets it right, and that you can use your smartphone or any other Bluetooth-enabled device to speak with the car securely, without having to fear that somebody eavesdrops the communication or can communicate with the car by itself. A different topic is a firewall, for example. So today you have domain separation between different parts of the car, but this is going to be much, much more common in the future. So again, I encourage you to read the paper. We elaborate on all the different security features and how they work today and within 5 years. One of the features that we picked out is domain separation. So nowadays you have different buses of different kind within the car. The most common one is the CAN bus, but you can also have MOST, FlexRay, or Ethernet. Very conveniently, car manufacturers put Ethernet into cars because this is what every hacker already knows. And not the usual Ethernet, so it's not a Cat5 8-wire cable, but instead it's a twisted pair automotive Ethernet connector. So it's a different connector, different cable. You wouldn't spot it immediately, but it's something that most people in this room probably know their way around. What you nowadays have, or in the future what you will have, is a central gateway that separates the different parts of the network and also enforces a separation. So you won't be able to have, for example, the engine controller talk to the windshield wiper, because this is not desirable. There's no use case when the engine controller won't like to talk to the windshield wiper. And as such, they are put on different buses, they are strictly separated, and only whitelisted communication can occur or is forwarded by the gateway. This is not a security feature, or this is not done for security. Security is a convenient byproduct because, as I said, the CAN bus has 1 megabit of bandwidth. This is for lack of bandwidth. You have in a modern car 100, maybe 120 microcontrollers which control everything from opening the roof or measuring tire pressure. And to have them all on one single bus is just too much for the bus to handle. What you will also more commonly see are hardware trust anchors or hardware security modules. They will be used to store key material, to verify signatures, or to do hardware accelerated cryptography, simply because the need is clearly here to have authenticated messages, to have encrypted messages, and the entire industry is moving in that direction. Another feature, signed software updates. So I guess most of you know how to sign a software update. You have a root CA, which signs the hash value of the software update. The public key is embedded in the software of the car already, and as soon as the car downloads the software update, it is able to verify that this is actually signed by the vendor or the component manufacturer and so forth. So we will see a move to PKI, public key technologies, and having public keys embedded in car software more and more in the next 5 years. Another feature is secure boot. You have the initial bootloader being very minimal, verifying each stage of the later points in the boot process using cryptographic signatures. So they have a certificate which said this is the software, this is allowed to run, and this is cryptographically verifiable. The only problem with that is, no problem actually. This is really cool, and this will come in the future. Also, authenticated communication. So nowadays, if you connect to the network, just like the previous presenter showed, you can just read the communication as it is transmitted on the wire. What's going to happen, and more going to happen, is to have authenticated messages to prevent relay attacks and to prevent injecting fraudulent messages. One of the details of the Charlie Miller and Chris Walasek hack was that they knocked out one of the smaller ECUs pretending to be a software update, then aborting the software update and impersonating this ECU. And this will be prevented by having a secret shared between different components of the car. The secret key is then used to sign the message to be sent, because bandwidth is really small, you calculate a CMAC, you truncate it, and then you send it, and the receiving entity can then verify that it was actually the correct component sending this message. And this is cryptographically sound. This happens for online banking or whatever online communication we do nowadays all the time, and it's now part of the AUTOSAR standard to be more and more widely used. What's also going to happen is intrusion detection system. So instead of just firewalling the different components from each other, you will have an intrusion detection system which will be able to detect anomalies in traffic and saying, hey, this is an enormous amount of messages you're sending. Problem will be that, of course, to ensure safety, you cannot just drop the communication, but you have to report it. But dropping messages while you're driving 130 on the highway is probably unjustified to just drop the signals. So you will have intrusion detection system which have internet connectivity, which will use their connection to transmit the results to somewhere else. The bright future ahead, autonomous driving, AI, automotive, Ethernet, and so forth, all these things are coming, also legislation. Just last year, I think, there was the Security and Privacy in Your Car Act, abbreviated, it's the SPY Act, not so smart abbreviation. But this was a law which was proposed in the US, didn't go through, but this will be coming, that you have mandated security features for cars, just as you have today the e-call features. So if your airbag detonates because your car was hit by a tank, I don't know, then automatically the car sends this information to a call center, and then they can send help much more quickly, just because you're still under this tank trying to get out. So to summarize, security improves rapidly, for very small components and also for entire fleets of cars. There's a Chinese proverb which is actually meant as a curse: may you always live in interesting times. This is actually true, so car security is a really cool topic to work right in currently. However, downside is the price for cars is probably still the most powerful deterrent against vehicular hacking. So of course you can hack a scrapped car which is worthless, but hacking a modern car which is 80, 90,000 euros, these are just not as easy to get for hackers. So this is still the most powerful deterrent. Again, read the paper if you're interested in details. Thank you.